Story 1. My sister-in-law, 27, female, got married 2 days ago. So, backstory, me and my wife, 32, female, are lesbians, and when I tell you the amount of nonsense that came from my sister-in-law's mouth during our relationship, it was bad. She mentioned multiple times how her sister was better off with her abusive husband, and how I was corrupting her and my stepkids. We both had given her the benefit of the doubt at first because, well, she was 22 at the time and quite sheltered by her parents. But God, what happened at her wedding was a crap show. So, me and my dear future wife wanted to get married in April, and most of the prep was done, including my dress. I never had much growing up and grew up in an orphanage, so getting married to a woman in public was honestly a huge step for me. It was like proving to everyone who told me I would die alone that I was finally happy and gay. This wedding was a big deal for my fiancée as well because the only wedding she had was when she was 22 with her abusive ex. The dress wasn't white, it was a dark blue with gold, and God, it was the best thing ever. It had gold flowers and was my cottagecore dream. I got so much crap from my in-laws about it not being white and some other things I forget. Most of my in-laws were borderline homophobic, really. Well, the time of the wedding comes, it's all good. My future wife looks hot in her suit, and all goes according to plan until the bride comes out in my dress. The exact ducking dress. I felt lightheaded and like I could vomit. My future wife never saw the dress, so she didn't know, but as soon as I rushed outside after the bride reached the altar, my stepdaughters must have told her. Without a second thought, we were in the car and headed home. She had a breakdown as soon as we got home, and she kept saying sorry and that it was her fault. It was awful. So awful. I cried, she cried, and long story short, we both got a fever. Well, last night, her sister called, and damn, she was screaming about how we made a mockery of her and how everyone was more focused on us than her $90,000 wedding. She then called us fess and said she copied my dress because she knew that what we were doing wasn't a wedding because we are fess. She said she took the dress because I would look like a fat pig in it anyway, and added more stuff about how we ruined the wedding and crap like that. And me and my future wife were sponsoring her honeymoon, which we took back. It was a trip to Italy and Greece, all funded by us, mind you. We were sick as hell. We had to send the girls over to our friend's house so they wouldn't be affected. Well, my mother-in-law called too and said how we shouldn't have left like that and how I turned her daughter into a selfish homosexual, and that my wife had no right to take back the honeymoon money. So now I feel guilty as hell, and most of their comments hurt a lot. It's spiking my anxiety and other issues. So, am I the a-hole? The revenge here is already yours? When every time she looks at her wedding pics, she will see that dress and remember what she did and why. She gave up her own day to make it about you too. Two, every time she shows those pics to anyone, they will ask, why not white? And she will either have to explain and show her bigotry or lie. 3, honeymoon money, wear the dress if you want, or get a new one and laugh all the way to the vows. Either way. Story 2. My son was smart. Smarter than me. I almost requested a paternity test because he was so damn intelligent. That IS a joke. My ex and I divorced when he was about 12. She remarried when he was 14. I did when he was 16. I had a rest set up for him. That's an education fund in Canada. As long as he went for post-secondary education, he could use the money for anything. I always told him that I was okay with him not going to university. That way I could use the money I had saved up for him to go to Belgium and buy some beer from monks that only allow you to buy one a unit. He knew I was joking and he always played along. He wouldn't let me get his goat. When he got accepted to McGill, it was the proudest moment of my life. I took him out for a beer to celebrate his achievement and mourn the loss of my trip to Europe. My son was struck and killed by a drunk driver in March. I'm dealing with it. My ex is dealing with it. My wife has been nothing but my rock in this. She is holding me up. I was dealing with the funeral arrangements and everything when my ex came to talk to me about his money. She knew he had a scholarship and was just going to use the money for living expenses and an emergency fund. She asked me what I was going to do with it. I said I was going to do what I always said I would. I was going to Europe to drink beer. She asked if she could have it for her stepson. I thought about it and said no. Her husband is a decent enough person, but he made it clear that he wasn't responsible for any expenses for my son. Beyond food and shelter and stuff, obviously. Like I said, he is decent. I said I was not going to do that. I was going to go drink beer in my son's honor. She says I'm wasting thousands of dollars, and I guess I am. I have to give back the government portion of the fund, but I don't care. My ex thinks I'm being stupid and irresponsible, wasting my son's money like this. I don't care. My son would laugh his ass off if he knew I actually did it. Story 3. I 25F have a sister, Ella 28 fella, and I have always been close growing up, despite her being 3 years older. We've always been best friends. I was her Mo and she's mine. Ella is currently 5 months pregnant. She had a rough first trimester, throwing up 3 to 4 times a day. Always tired. Some days she couldn't get out of bed, literally. She had also found out early when she was a month into it because her symptoms were so bad. Her and I live close to each other. And since her husband travels a lot for work, I have stayed with her a lot since I work remotely. My fiancé and I had originally set the date for July. However, seeing how sick she was, I, along with my entire family, were getting worried. And so after my fiancé and I discussed it, we decided to reschedule the wedding until after she had passed her first trimester per her doctor. She was supposed to get better. I need to add that no one asked this of us, but I felt it was needed. And thank God she did get better. She's eating normally, going out and back to herself. Seeing this, my fiancé and I talked about our wedding again. I had always wanted a summer wedding on the beach, but I didn't want to wait a full year, and seeing winter wedding pictures was slowly growing on me. And so we decided on a December wedding. The invitations were finalized last week with the date, and were all sent a couple of days ago. Yes, it's early, but my man and I all have big families, big group of friends and colleagues. We need the wrist feps early yesterday. I got an angry phone call from my sister asking how can I do something like this to her. I was honestly confused and told her as much, and she went on to rant about how inconsiderate I was to not wait until my nephew was born, that her being MO and 8 months pregnant is going to be hard, and that she has already been through hell. I calmly explained to her that while yes, she is MOH, I don't expect her to go above and beyond. My best friend and her had already planned a girls' night back when my wedding was in July. So we're just going with that again. Everything is already bought, and my best friend will set it up. I told her that my man and I have also rebooked everything ourselves flowers. Venue and catering are going to be done by our friends who have their own shops and companies, and that I'll shap some call. A, to have her dress resized to accommodate her bump. I'm even taking care of hair and makeup for all my wedding party, a sort of pamper session where we'll all get ready together and take pictures. All she's required to do is show up. She's having none of it and is demanding we reschedule it again until next summer. I put my foot down and gave her a flat-out no. My parents called me and asked me to reconsider, saying that I know she's emotional and hormonal. I told them that's not an excuse for her to act like a bitch. Any opinions, advice are much appreciated. Story 4. From my brother, Steve, 28, growing up was a nightmare. Steve is autistic, and my mom embraced the full-on autism mom role. My brother was not even that bad. He was in all of the advanced classes. He knew some crazy history shit and loved coding and building computers. My mom went to these autism mom support groups. She would get these stupid ideas Steve needed to be cured and put him on very harmful meds. So when Steve received his scholarship, Steve ran and never spoke to mom again. He actually cut off most of the family, including my grandma, who was worse than my mom, and she would bully Steve. I remember him as my cool big brother, so he reached out when I turned 18, and we have been close ever since. Steve got married in May. It was a small wedding, and I was the best man. My mom and grandma are clueless about Steve's life. Somehow I heard about the wedding over Labor Day. Since my mom tried to get me to intervene with Steve or his wife to reconnect in case she gets grandbobbies, Steve hates my mother and has peats from her and grandma's shit during his childhood, so I don't want to trigger him and risk my relationship. I told my mom about it, says it's not going to happen, and Steve would never allow our mom around him, his wife, or future children. My mom asked if she was really that big of a monster and said yes to Steve she was, and he will never forgive her. I told mom she needs to view Steve as dead to her. My mom yelled at me saying I could repair the relationship between them if I wanted, but I'm selfish and I wanted Steve all to myself. I told mom the time to be a better mother was when Steve was a child. My mom told me that she views me as dead to her. I told mom she can die, man, as far as I care.